If you're on social media, you agreed to let them use your content, repurpose your content however they feel free. You agreed to promote their platform. You agreed to put content. You're actually making content for them, which they're selling ads against, and you're not getting paid anything. And you've never questioned it one time. So it's like anything that's free, you're the product. So that's like an artist going into the studio for 10 hours a day and making an album every single week and never receiving one royalty. Because that's what we're doing. You think you're just making a post. You're making content that they're selling ads against. If there's no platform and nobody's making content, then there's no revenue model for them to make money from.
I want to know what you think, Moose.
That's a loaded clip, for lack of better terms. And there's a lot of truth to that. I have to admit, I don't know how it lines up to the music industry per se, but I am going to speak to it, from a business standpoint, because there was a time that I made a comment about, this was definitely during one of the seasons that I was not in love with social media. I have to preface by saying that, because I made a comment, and even the example that I drew to, and I think one of the community members ended up making a comment like, hey, I understood what you were saying, but you definitely shouldn't line up that moment in history with what you're trying to make there, because that was out of pocket. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I apologize. Never again will I say it. But I have the same stance on it, at least then, right? If you think about it, the way I saw it then, and this probably was maybe 2 years ago, the way I saw it was the owners of the social media platforms had a lot of people working for them for free. And I was specifically referring to all of the users, and even more so the content creators who dedicate so much of their time and their life to produce content on these platforms. And there is no guaranteed payment. You're not doing this because you get a guarantee return. You can't really track it. Now, in a lot of ways, it falls under the category or the new form of marketing. Right? We understand that social media is a form of marketing, and that's how you use it. But from the standard traditional rules of you do this and in return you get this for it, you are not making money that way. And so at the time I was speaking to it really from that context and saying, hey man, like if you're on social media, you're working for free, right? That's what that was. Now, I have to say, having spent so much time contributing to this podcast, learning from this podcast, listening to and understanding new age digital media and what has become our newest form of marketing, which in a lot of ways now is content, I have to say it has changed. My answer and my opinion on that has changed. Yes, you don't get paid in the traditional method, but I think if they were to do that, no one would want to be employed to be a social media content creator, because there might be some pros, you might get some benefits in retirement and 401k, but think about how much of your creativity might have to become limited as a result of that. Imagine having to clock in and clock out and put all of these parameters around your creativity or the messaging and the content that you want to put out if it were an actual job. But to be able to do it the way it is now, it's completely free. You have to learn at your own risk, meaning that you have to go out there and acquire the knowledge and the information. You have to do that on your own so that you can align it. And we talked about this in the first segment of the podcast, align it with your brand so it does click, so people can see the content, make sense of what's happening, specifically, and I'm talking about for each of you who are contributing, and then whatever product or service that you attach to it, it can convert for you on a consistent basis. So I have to say that when it comes to the new age model and how I see it now, I think it actually is good the way it is, set up.
I look at social media as a leverage. I don't necessarily, it can be frustrating. I'm giving you all this content, giving you all this time, and you are saying that you're giving us pennies, right? YouTube is definitely one of those things that I feel that way, especially with our channel. To think about what would life be without social media and having a brand and all the stuff you would have to do, going back to traditional commercials and how much that costs, how you have to be, feet on the ground, right? and getting yourself out there where we could literally be in the comforts of our home. And yeah, we have to work a little bit harder, but the reward is global awareness. We are in, and I'll use us as an example, we are in the comforts of our home, maybe sometimes Egypt, maybe sometimes Mexico, right?
Hello.
You know, different states. We could be in different places, but like I stated earlier in this in this episode, we're reaching people in Uganda. We're reaching people in Great Britain, South Korea, right? Things we've never even like remotely thought about going to. It's all about how you look at it. And though we speak so highly about getting paid what you're worth and knowing your worth, that whole nine, there are certain tools that we have to use strategically to get what we want. And so when, and I'm not going to speak on the music thing because I'm not in the music industry, but I believe that in this day and age, there may not be as much budget to promote people's music as there used to be. So they have to take it to social media to be able to get the fan base, to be able to monetize in the long term by doing this play. So, and to think about it, when they do put their music up, there is still ways that they can monetize when people are using their music. Maybe some of those don't know that, but there are ways of doing that. Shout out to Tobe, because he's one of those guys that's figured it out. What I don't like is what people will complain about a free tool. And I'm not saying that he's complaining, but I don't like that people will complain about a free tool about how much they're paying the creator. Now, granted, we as creators make the social media brands work. They have a pulse because of us. Not taking that away. But also, what are we doing as personal brands, as brands, to build our own community, to build outside? Right? I was watching, shout out to Mike and Trap. They had this really good interview. And going a little off topic, but still in the same realm. Trap was talking about, it may look like I was on a press run, but I was really being just led by the Spirit. But I'm realizing my whole goal was to get my message out to the world, but I didn't have the business part right. So I actually had to chill out for a little bit. I got my own spot. I got my own studio, and I figured out the business model. I think of that statement, that what he said over there, kind of just like how we do with social media. We're getting on social media to spread our message out to the world, right? But it's still our job to have the business part. This is why we have been so big on talking about the creator economy and talking about the different ways you can monetize your brand. Because if not, you are going to get frustrated with social media. You are going to get frustrated with the couple of coins that you will be getting here and there. Now, you do have some outliers. You do have those that break the mold and understand the algorithm and how to make a good amount of living just from the platforms alone. Absolutely. But majority that are winning, that are in the millions, going into the billions, have businesses, have different streams of revenue based off their influence, based off their brand, based off their audience. Are we doing a lot on social media? Yeah. But the people who are doing it right are the ones that are leveraging it for other stuff.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that consumption is free, meaning education is complimentary. So if you are using social media for the right thing, you're not having to pay. I mean, think about how much we've learned through YouTube and Google, and we haven't had to spend a dime to get it. I've learned a ton. If I were to pay for that stuff, my goodness, it probably worth more than my college education. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to take that into consideration too. Again, outside of the context of the music business, but just talking about when you think about social. And I literally opened up and I wanted to set the frame that way and saying, I was one of those people that said, why would I dump all this time, effort, and energy into doing things on social when it's not paying me anything, right? And I was looking at it as a direct return. I'm not a Mr. Beast, or I'm not a creator who's making X amount of thousands of dollars every month. And then I had to, again, study and understand, hey, the market has shifted. Traditional businesses and what a new age business model, it's completely different. It starts online and then it bleeds into whatever product or service, whether that be a physical location, an online training academy, whatever it is, right? It starts there. That's just your new marketing channel. So even with that approach, you have fun with it. And I think you said it really good too. You don't take it so personal. It's important, but it's not so serious. It's not life or death. It's like, oh, this is marketing. I understand this now. And so, yeah, it's a much better approach when you think of it that way.
Facts.